Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive. Because what the world needs is people who've come alive. When I first heard that quote by Howard Thurman, I just graduated from college, and it inspired me to pursue my dreams. See, I had turned a negative situation around. In high school, I was a star basketball player, and standing at 6'8", I knew that was a promising path. But in college, I rode the bench, and I dealt with personal adversity in the form of betrayal with someone I was dating at the time and one of my teammates. And I had a season-ending injury my junior year. I remember going into that locker room every single day, feeling like I failed at the thing I was best at. But then, through working with a professional coach, I went on a journey of personal development, and I grew from those challenges and became a leader on campus, and ultimately landed my dream job in strategy consulting. But then, the world changed. In 2020, a global pandemic and the social justice crisis after the murder of George Floyd. And I remember having this deep conviction that I wanted to make a difference. And that quote by Howard Thurman pushed me over the edge. And so I decided to turn down that corporate job offer and start a nonprofit that brought the same coaching and personal development to youth who are often underestimated. And I got certified as a leadership coach myself. I found what made me come alive. And just 2 years later, it wasn't working out. My co-founder had quit, our program was cut, and we were quickly running out of cash. And I'd already asked everyone I knew and loved to donate, and I felt like I was letting them down. And I questioned, did I make the right decision with what to do with my life? Dang it, Howard Thurman. I was burnt out, frustrated, and confused. And I flew home for the holidays to be with family. And it was Christmas Eve, 2022. In my childhood room, sitting on my bed, scrolling on my phone, I discovered something that would change everything. I'll tell you what it is in a moment, but first, let me tell you why you should care. My name is Tim Harrison. I'm a leadership coach, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a poet, I'm a man of faith, and I'm also on a mission. And my mission is to inspire and equip people to realize their potential. And the equip part is key because the tools at our fingertips are becoming quite capable. Maybe you've noticed. You're watching a video online, and halfway through you're like, that's not real. It must be AI. You receive a message from someone, and you think, you don't really sound like that. It must be AI. Or you're looking at the road, and a car is going by, but there's no one behind the wheel. It must be AI. The world is changing. But what does that mean for you and me? On the one hand, will AI help us counteract climate change, cure cancer, crack the codes of the universe, make high-quality services universally accessible, ushering in a world of abundance? Or will it cancel our critical thinking, cheapen our creativity, consolidate power, make war worse, replace us at work, and ultimately render us useless? The truth is, no one knows what happens next. But what I do know is that the most powerful people on the planet are pushing for progress because the profits and impact are unprecedented. These things are here to stay, and they're getting better fast. But what I also know is that when we focus on what we can control, we maximize the influence that we have. AI is the great multiplier. It'll multiply the positives, and it'll multiply the negatives. But the thing in our control is who we are when we're multiplied. And who I was in that moment was burnt out, frustrated, and confused. Christmas Eve 2022, there in my childhood room, I discovered something new. A powerful technology with a funny sounding name, ChatGPT. What can it do? I put in my prompt to see if it could write a poem. I pondered different perspectives to test if it's all-knowing. I watched it like, wow, as the words started rolling. This thing's pretty good. By the time I flew back to Houston, my question changed from what can it do to what can I do with it. I had some quick wins becoming more efficient, but then I began to think bigger. I thought about the limits with the nonprofit, and I realized if we can build an AI that can coach, we can overcome those obstacles and reach way more students. The problem was, I had never written a line of code in my life. So what did I do? I consulted the system. I told it my situation, got support. I put in my prompts going back and forth until 5 a.m. the next morning. I had a working app that could take someone through a skilled coaching session. And as fate would have it, the next week I was scheduled to speak at a school, and I threw away my entire speech. And I said, try this instead. And the students went through a one-on-one session with the coach that I had just built. And they said it made a difference. Nice. Now, while I feel good about the impact, I had a much deeper realization. There were 50 students in that room. Each of them did a 30-minute coaching session. I just delivered 25 hours of coaching in just 30 minutes. That would have taken the entire semester. And that's just the 50 students in the room. There's 500 at the school, 15,000 in the district who could all scan that same QR code and have a session without any more effort on my part. And that's just one session. Every one of them could have 50 sessions every year. That's multiple lifetimes worth of coaching on something that I just had an idea for. This was a game changer. And when the rules of a game change, it changes how you play. The game has changed because you can go from idea to execution instantly. The game has changed because you can build things of quality for little to no cost. And the game has changed because you can apply skills that you don't have. And when the rules of a game change, not only does it change how you play, most importantly, it changes what it takes to win. And in a world where AI is removing the external barriers of time, money, and skills, the bottleneck on our potential moves from outside of us to inside. It's the roadblocks within that hold us back. It's the student who doesn't fully apply themselves because deep down they don't believe that they're capable. So they never even use AI that can act as a universal tutor on every subject with infinite patience. It's the dreamer who wants to start a business, but they never launch because they're afraid of failure and what other people would think. And they never take advantage of the digital part-time employee that can build their website, their logo, and their prototype for cheap. And it's the leader who wants to empower others, but they stay complacent because they avoid the complexity of change, despite having an expert advisor that's as simple to use as having a conversation. It's the roadblocks within that hold us back. AI is the great multiplier, but if you multiply any number by 0, you get 0. And in a world where the external barriers on our potential are being removed, the onus is on us to develop ourselves. Therefore, the key to unlocking our potential in the age of AI is our capacity to increase our own abilities in our own direction. So what is it that allows us to overcome these roadblocks within so that our potential can be multiplied? We need something that I call power. And power stands for purpose, ownership, wisdom, execution, and resilience. And these 5 principles point to the uniquely human capacities to choose, to change, and to respond in a way that we can level up ourselves, because the level that we're at is a level to which we're multiplied. And I'm going to go through each one of these briefly. The P in power is for purpose. Who here asked to be born? No hands, right? Life happened to us. So unless you want to go through the rest of your life by default, there comes a day where you have to decide to live on purpose. For me, that day was after I graduated. I looked at how the world was changing, and I knew I wanted to be someone who made a difference, who contributed. And that quote by Howard Thurman, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive," prompted me to take a more purposeful path. But when it wasn't working out, I thought, Maybe I'm just naive. But as I grew, I realized where I was wrong. If you ask childhood Tim, that was probably this tall. If you ask childhood Tim, what made him come alive? He would have said basketball. And in basketball, when the ball stops bouncing, you want to keep moving, you have to pivot. And to pivot is to change. Basketball was my dream. But when the ball stopped bouncing, I had to pivot. I pivoted from basketball to consulting, from consulting to the nonprofit, from the nonprofit to technology. And I've pivoted since, and I'll probably pivot again. But at each turn, I learned, I grew, and I became a better version of myself. And now I'm living a life in alignment with my deepest values and my greatest abilities in a way that could not have been possible had I taken any other path. I became a better version of myself. And that's what the world needs. We don't know what the world will need in terms of jobs. There's going to be displacement. But we do know that we need people who have come alive, who are living on purpose, and who are the best version of themselves when that day comes. That's why we need purpose. The O in power is ownership. Purpose, ownership. Ownership is about understanding who you are and taking full responsibility. Why did my co-founder leave? Why did our program get cut? Why was funding drying up? I had my own limitations as a leader that kept me from building the business. And as a result, my co-founder didn't see a future big enough for himself. Our partnership was cut because we could only reach a few dozen students. So when budgets get squeezed, we're first to go. And the dollars were drying up because while there's funding for good causes, they prioritize those that have the most reach. It wasn't until I took a look inward at how was I contributing to these results that the path forward became crystal clear. We needed to scale. And that gave me the idea. If we can build an AI that can coach, we can overcome those obstacles and reach way more students. And AI removed the barriers. And literally, overnight, I had a solution. And the next week, I was reaching more students than any of our programs the past 2 years. The hard part was not building an app, even though we didn't have the funds, even though we didn't have the time, even though I didn't have the skills. The hard part was looking inward and realizing where I was complicit in those results. And that takes ownership. Purpose, ownership. And the W in power is for wisdom. And wisdom is how you navigate. I remember the first time that I rode in a self-driving car. I was sitting in the driver's seat, pressed start, pulled out the spot, exited the lot, turned on the street, made a left at the light, and I was like, wow, as we navigated through traffic. But in my amazement, I realized I never put in the address. The car was just moving, making turns, staying in the lane, but where was it taking us? And there's an underlying principle here that's true with AI, and it's also true in life. That what you don't specify will be decided for you. So choose your destination. But in a world that's constantly changing, we might worry, well, am I making the right decision? Will this still be the case? Where do I even start? But we can throw this concept of having a perfect plan out the window. There are no perfect paths. You perfect the path that you choose. So make a flawed plan, because as you implement your flawed plan, you gain the wisdom to make a better one, and a better one, and a better one. Like a car navigating to its destination, you get cut off, you move, you make a wrong turn, you reroute, and eventually you get to your destination. But you have to implement, and that's why the E in power is execution. Purpose, ownership, wisdom, execution. You got to do the work. But doing the work means something different when AI does a lot on our behalf. But there's a danger in that. I think we all feel this. Because as human beings, we grow from struggle. Our muscles grow when we break them down. Our brain forms new connections as we think things through. Even our character is forged as we overcome the obstacles in our life. If AI makes everything easy, then we're going to undermine ourselves, become weak and dependent. And unless you want that, you have to find new ways to struggle. But the good news is that while AI lowers the bar on how much effort it takes, it raises the bar on what you're capable of. Aim higher. Go further. Find harder problems to solve. When AI is doing the building, we spend more effort on what's worth building in the first place. It doesn't remove our need for effort. It changes where our effort needs to be placed. So choose your struggle, because there's the struggles we choose and the struggles that choose us. And that's why the R in power is for resilience, purpose, ownership, wisdom, execution, and finally, resilience. Around the time I was figuring things out with the nonprofit, my coaching company landed a high-stakes project, a multi-million-dollar research study measuring the impact of professional coaching in higher education. And this meant the world to me, because working with a coach in college changed my life trajectory. Now I had a chance to do the same, and it was the biggest contract in my career. I was stoked. I built out a team, designed the program, and we were seeing a measurable impact. But then the world changed. In 2025, the political climate in America shifted dramatically, and suddenly the things that our program stood for were under attack. I received an email, and immediately our funding was pulled. And like that, the vast majority of our revenue was gone, and the impact we were having completely undermined. And there's nothing I could do to change that. So with increased urgency, in an attempt to make the most of what we had left, we leveraged AI and we automated our administrative work, and we also were able to save time on data analysis, giving us back thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours. We reinvested those resources into a new program that helped entrepreneurs grow their business using AI. And that program was a hit. And as fate would have it, the week that we earned back what we spent to build this new program, I received a text from one of the researchers at the university. A judge had blocked the attack on our funding, and our program was reinstated. We're back in business, baby. Yeah. And not only were we back, but we were better off than if our program had never got cut in the first place, because we got more efficient and we had a new program that was having an impact and growing the business. And that's what resilience is about. It's not about bouncing back when you get knocked down. It's about growing because of the adversity that we face, because we don't always control what happens to us, but we always can choose how we respond. And there's always a way that we can respond in which we can grow from the challenges that we face in life. Like I said, my mission is to inspire and equip people to realize their potential. And in a world where the tools at our fingertips are multiplying what's possible, the true bottleneck on our potential is not outside of us, it's within us. And to develop that power, we need the purpose that makes us come alive, to take ownership over who we are, develop the wisdom to navigate, put in the effort to execute, and respond to adversity with resilience. And that's a power within you that can never be taken away. It can never be automated. It can only be forfeited. The world is changing. What will you do with your power?